Let's be honest, the horror genre is filled with a lot of very bad stories and adaptations. So it's very difficult to find some really good, high quality horror content these days. So I've been going back to my roots. I've been going back to what I remember as some of the best horror stories ever made. And so I went back to one of my favorite horror stories of all time, The Enigma of Amigara Fault by Junji Ito. Before we move on with the video, I just want to thank the people who have been supporting this new channel. And if you are new here, please consider subscribing and liking the video. Anyway, back to the video, and thank you so much for the support. Okay, so let's get this out of the way. Who is Junji Ito? In case you've been living under a rock, Junji Ito is a prominent Japanese horror manga artist. He was born on July 31st, 1963, and his works are inspired a lot by his childhood influences like Kazuo Umezu and Shinichi Koga. And one of his notable works is Tomie, the other one Uzumaki and Gyo, and also the short story that we are going to be discussing in this video as well. He also apparently likes cats, and if you have watched any of his interviews, he's one of the most wholesome people I've ever seen in my life. Why is it that the most wholesome people have the most unhinged thoughts and stories? I don't get it. Anyway, what's my purpose in society, and how exactly do I fit in? That's the question that has been gnawing at me since I read the short story. You see, Junji Ito is an amazing horror writer, and he finds horror in some of the most mundane things in day-to-day life. The Enigma of Amigara Falls isn't my first Junji Ito story. My first ever Junji Ito story was a manga called Uzumaki, which is one of his most famous works. I remember getting that manga from one of my friends. I borrowed it and read through it in a week, and it was one of the most horrifying experiences of my life. Not just the imagery, but just the story and the fact that he made something as simple as spirals be so much more horrifying than it should be. He does something very similar with this short story. It's a very simple concept. You see, the narrative begins after an earthquake reveals a mysterious fault on Amigara mountain, where countless human-shaped holes are found, which is creepy enough already, but the holes are not random. Each of the holes fits an individual perfectly. The main character, Owaki and Yoshida, are mountain trekkers, and they too feel the primal urge to go into those holes. They soon find this guy called Nagagaki, who is the first to succumb to the call of his hole, and disappears into it without a trace. Countless people search for him, but they never really find him. Soon enough, Owaki also finds her own hole that fits her perfectly. But Yoshida wants to avoid her from going into it, obviously not knowing the dangerous things that might be lurking inside. In fact, he gets a nightmare about it before. So he fills Owaki's hole with stones so she cannot enter it, but all his efforts are in vain because she goes inside anyway, and yet again, unsurprisingly, is not found again. And he too eventually also goes paranoid and goes inside his hole, never to be found again. And later on, after a long time, a similar fault is found, but this time the holes aren't human shaped. They are weirdly distorted. And the last horrifying panel of the manga shows distorted human beings, surprisingly still alive, trying to call out to these researchers. I love how this story explores exactly what Junji Ito is good at, making everyday things like a fault, a mountain, holes into very horrifying experiences. Just think about it. It's just a normal hole, right? It's just a normal mountain. It's just a fault. It's just normal. Until it isn't. So why this? Why not Uzumaki? Why not something else like Tomie or Gyo? Even though I have read all of these and all of those are amazing stories in and of itself, but this one hits a little bit different to me. You see, a lot of people have thought about what the story is trying to say. Now, obviously, Junji Ito stories, a lot of them are open to interpretation, so you can think about what theories you want to make. and the most common theory for the Enigma of Amigara fault is the concept of death drive. It's a term coined by Sigmund Freud, one of the most influential neurologists to ever exist. He says that humanity subconsciously desires for self-destruction. So in this story, it's more of curiosity versus instinct. The character's curiosity about what lies within the hole is overshadowed by the instinctual pull that drives them to enter, even when they realize they may never return. This internal conflict heightens the horror, as it reflects our own tendencies towards self-sabotage. While this is a good analogy and this is very much plausible, my theory is a little bit different. I don't think that this is more of a self-destruction thing, but rather it's about belonging. It's about the feeling of belonging to that particular hole in the fault. When you look at a hole that you know you fit exactly into, it feels like you're meant to go there. You're meant to go inside the hole because it fits you, right? I feel like that analogy works better because you have no idea what the purpose of the hole is. You have no idea what it's for and where it leads to. But the fact that it fits you perfectly means you belong there. And that's exactly where the existential dread kicks in. That's exactly where the fear of the unknown kicks in. Another popular analogy that can be used is the call of the void. This is a phenomenon known as the l'appel du vide or the call of the void. Plays a significant role here. It describes that fleeting urge to leap from heights or engage in reckless behavior. In this story, that call manifests through the holes, drawing individuals towards their doom. I could go on and on and on about all of the theories that this short story has, and there are thousands of them. And this is why I love this story, and this is why I love what it does differently, and something that has been done in the 90s is still one of the most influential and one of the best stories that I have ever read that still horrifies me. The ambiguity also raises the question of the purpose of these holes in the fault. It might be an ancient punishment or maybe an alien design. You see, Owaki's dream suggests that these holes were created by an ancient society as a form of punishment for crime. Maybe. However, the intricacy and precision of these shapes raise questions about whether they were crafted by humans at all, or if some advanced being had a hand in their creation. Again, the reader's interpretation plays a big role here, and I feel like the fear of the unknown again plays a major role where you can think of it as horrifying of a theory as you can possibly think of. And for different people, different things are going to horrify them, and those theories are going to work better for them. And this is why I love this story. Body horror is also something that Junji Ito is very well known for, and this is also shown in the manga. You see that physical transformations that have been shown in both of Owaki's nightmares vividly illustrate this, as he feels his body being stretched and contorted within the confines of the hole, the horrifying metaphor for losing one's identity and humanity. It's also about existential crisis because it might be for how we feel trapped in our circumstance and are compelled to conform to societal expectations at the cost of our true selves. And I feel like this one again makes more sense than the death drive that has been so popularly thought of as the theory for this. The Enigma of Amigara Falls stands out as a profound piece of horror literature due to its exploration of psychological themes, existential dread, and body horror, and it's mesmerizing how Junji Ito can weave these elements together and create a narrative that lingers long after reading. Like I said, I have read this probably 20 times and I still don't get bored. Sometimes I think about why this story resonates with me so much. I think about why I think this is one of the best, if not the best, horror story that I've ever read. And I feel like sometimes it's not about the monsters or the Draculas or the ghosts. It's not about the jump scares or the dark, moody atmosphere. It's just about the simple things in life. It's about the simple human psychology and how a master storyteller can manipulate it to make any experience horrifying for us. This is why I think Junji Ito's horror is a diamond in the rough, and this is why I think this story is a true masterpiece in modern horror literature, even though the word masterpiece has been used so much, but I really mean it. So, what's your favorite horror story? Or maybe you have more theories about this one. Let me know in the comments down below, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. I'm going to be making much more videos about not only this, but games, movies, and much more content. So, see you next time.